Hello, welcome to Dungeon Rolls Podcast. I'm your host Justin. Today we're reviewing Richard Newcomb. Combe. I always pronounce his name wrong. The Fifth Sorceress, Volume 1 in the Chronicles of Blood and Stone. You got a beautiful cover there. I'm a little confused on who that character is because there's two dwarf characters. One who wears a blue cape like that, and one that doesn't. But the one that does has red hair and has a beard, and the other one who doesn't wear a blue cape has black hair and is clean shaven. So I'm a little confused who that character is supposed to be. So yeah, today we're reviewing The Fifth Sorceress. When I first started reviewing fantasy novels on like a weekly basis, I encountered a problem where almost every book I reviewed, I was giving like, sevens, sixes out of 10. And I'm like, man, I need to read and review some bad fantasy novels, or it's going to look like I like everything, right? And and that's something that I started doing book reviews because I was watching other book reviewers review books and pretty much giving everything a positive review, right? I'm not going to name names, but I've been noticing that, right? So I went on the internet, and I went on Goodreads, I went on YouTube, and I went for the search on a search for the worst, most hated fantasy novel of all time, and I found it in like 2002's Richard Newcomb, The Fifth Sorceress, right? Because a lot of people hated this book. They called it sexist, homophobic, and then there are people who were like, it's just badly written, and there's stupid stuff in the book, like the character being a layabout, weak prince who plays fetch with his horse and treats it like a dog. Which listen, right? And I did do my share of research. There are people who, and then you can watch videos on YouTube of people playing fetch with their horses. But that's not what happened in the book. Okay, he was like he just threw a carrot to get his horse off out of his face to go, to get out of his face, right? And he threw a carrot, and the horse went after it. The pilgrim, who looks different in the book. The pilgrim's supposed to be gray with a white mane, and he's all black there. So, if you can tell, I'm not gonna lie, I actually like the book. I actually like the book, and I went in thinking I would hate the book, right? Because when I first started reading this book, like a week ago, I started off very slow, right? I started off very slow. And, to the point where, like, I try to do these reviews every 7 days, right? So, like, today was the 7th day. For me to finish the book, I had to read 168 pages. 168 pages, and that's a lot for me. Usually the best I could do is like 100 pages a day. I had to finish the book today. I did 168 pages, right? And I gotta say, man, I actually enjoyed the book. Yes, there are problems with the book, but, I enjoyed it. But for me to talk about the book, there's going to be minor spoilers, right? Because so many people hate the book, and there's so much criticism out there. For me to like explain why I like it, and to give my counter arguments on why the book, in my opinion, is a decent book. It's not great, but I think a lot of the criticism people have for the book is unwarranted, in my opinion. Especially since there are a lot of more popular books than this that have a lot more problematic stuff in it, a lot worse, and people like, people, I'm not going to name names or famous series, George R. R. Martin, Game of Thrones, that have a lot more sexism and homophobia and whatever, including the dreaded, I'm not going to say the word, but should I remind people, Danny in Game of Thrones was only 14, and there's like a shitload of sex scenes in that first book with Danny, right? Here, there are sex scenes in the book, but, as far as we know, everybody's, like, consenting ages, right? So, the story for this book, and this is probably the reason why people automatically throw sexism, right? Because the book, the background for the book is that in the kingdom of Eutracia, however you pronounce it, that's one of my problems with the book. A lot of the names, I have no idea how to pronounce, especially some of the characters' name. Like, there's this one character whose name is spelled, like, all of the female names in the book, I have no idea how to pronounce. Like, there's one that's called Succiu, and I just like, fuck it, her name is Susie. I'm just gonna call her Susie. But yeah, there's a lot of names like that are unpronounced. Like, I have no idea how to pronounce. But yeah, in the kingdom of Eutracia, there was a war between the wizards and the sorceresses, right? And it messed up the country to the point where the wizards and the people were almost wiped out and enslaved by the sorceress. But the wizards were able to find a magic stone and, like, special magic water that's, like, red. Hence the name Blood and Stone. That and the only people in this universe, in this book, that can use magic in this world is people with endowed blood. And the magic system is very much reminiscent of Star Wars, where you have, like, the good magic, which is called the Vigord, and you have the bad magic called the Valgaries, or Valgaries, right? Like, almost like Vulgarities, but it's, like, pronounced with an A. Yeah, so, like, the wizards practice the Vigord magic, and the sorcerers practice the Vagaries, which, because it's like an evil magic source, it makes them insane. It drives them crazy, right? And because of the sorceresses were evil, I guess that's one of the reasons why people claim the book is sexist, right? So, what happened is that after the war was over, there were only 4 sorceresses left, which actually there was 5, right? There were 4 sorcerers left, and the one of the wizards, called Wig, is chosen from his Brotherhood of Wizards to banish the sorcerers on the uncrossable sea called the what was it called? I'm gonna check the map out. I forget what it was called. The Sea of Whispers? Yeah, the Sea of Whispers. Here's the map. Alright. And, like, it turns out they banish the sorceresses in the Sea of Whispers because they have vows that they're not allowed to take life, right? Take life outside of self-defense or without fair warning. So with that last part, you would think they would be able to kill the sorceresses, right? But, like, yeah, they banish them, and they think the sorcerers are screwed. But it turns out they find a way across the Sea of Whispers and go to this kingdom called Partholon, which has no people with endowed blood and no people who know magic, right? because there's nobody with endowed blood, and they conquer the kingdom. And then 327 years later, with there's a kind of magic called time enchantments. They're able to keep their they turn themselves into immortals, right? So 327 years later, you have the main character called Tristan, who is the prince of Eutracia, who is he's 29. On his 30th birthday, he's going to become king of the country of Eutracia, and given the magic stone that helped the wizards win the war against the sorcerers, right? But on that day, that the sorcerers attack, and his family are killed. Most of the wizards are dead except for Wig, right? Who's like the Gandalf of this world, and his sister Shailia, I think that's how you pronounce her name, who's pregnant, gets kidnapped and taken to the land of the sorceress. So it's up to Tristan, Wig, and friends along the way to take back the Paragon, the Magic Stone, and save Shailia from the evil sorceresses, right? And, like, hopefully to come back to their home kingdom and rebuild everything. So, unlike a lot of fantasy novels, the most you have are like 3 or 4, maybe if you're lucky, 5 action scenes. There are non-stop action scenes in this book, right? And they fight several different kinds of monsters that were created by the sorcerers, like the Bloodstalkers, which are like warped. They kidnapped wizards and turned them into like monsters that wield axes that hunt down males of endowed blood, which the Bloodstalkers look like the final boss in the Hellsing anime series from like the 90s, right? That 12 episode anime series. So if you remember the vampire from that's what they look like, but with a battle axe. You also have like these lizard men, right? The lizard men. You also have the minions of the day and night, which is the main army of the sorceress, which are men with like bat wings that wield katanas called dragons, and throwing weapons called silver wheels, which are basically kind of like the glaive from Crawl, if you ever watched that movie, right? And like Tristan, the main character, takes on his quest, takes a dragon and a silver whale, but he never uses a silver whale. His main weapons are the dragon, which is like a katana that can shoot out, that has a lever in the hilt that can shoot out an inch of steel, right? Or was it a foot of steel? I can't remember, right? And he has his throwing knives that he's a master of, right? So like got lots of different cool enemies in the book, and the book is very much a grim, dark fantasy. It's very dark, though. They don't have any pedo characters, thank God. But like reading the book, it reminded me a lot of Frank Herbert's Dune and Terry Goodkind's Sword of Truth series, which this book came out 7 years after Wizard's first rule, and there's no way the author of this book was not inspired by Wizard's first rule, because there's a lot of similarities, and I would have to spoil. There's one major similarity between the Fifth Sorceress and Wizard's first rule, but I can't talk about without spoiling both books. But yeah, there's major similarities. But yeah, I really enjoy the book. It's very dark, right? But it has its problems, right? There are some goofy shit in the book. I'm not gonna lie, like um, like his rivalry between Klug, the 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 commander of the minions of day and night, which apparently this book, man, like it reminded me of like the Chronicles of Riddick, where they have a rule. You know how in Chronicles of Riddick they have the whatever they're called, the necromorphs or whatever they're called, have this rule is like you keep what you kill, and that's how Riddick becomes the commander of the necromorphs in that book. You have something very similar to that happened in this book, and like, did Vin Diesel read this? Right? I wonder, because he's like a fantasy fan too, right? But yeah, there is problems. Like, there's goofy shit in the book, which is like for a grim dark book, man. That was very childish. There's some childish shit and the childish lines in the book, right? Which there's a scene where like Tristan gets captured and he calls like he taunts like Klug to come closer to his cage so he can call him a village idiot. And right, it's stupid shit like that, right? And then there's like there's this badass sword duel in the book that's like the climax of the book, right? And it was very badass sword fight between Tristan and Klug, which Tristan at that point had magic that he could have used to kill Klug, but who killed his parents, by the way, in the book. But like Tristan, like because of honor or whatever, he wanted to prove he was better, so he didn't use his magic. Which the only magic at that point he could use was telekinesis. But the one time he did use telekinesis was badass. But yeah, there's stupid shit like that. And then there's one point in the book where whoever edited this book should have been fired and never edited books again. Which there have been books that I've given 8 out of 10 that had like grammatical errors, and that had like somebody messed up and switched like words, right, with something else that didn't make sense grammatically. But then there was like a line in the book, right, that was obviously meant to be said by one character, right, talking to another character, and I guess the author did, like, changed his mind and was originally was supposed to be written by one character, but then he changed it to another character. But then it's back and forth, and it's supposed to be one character talking to another character, but it's like one character talking to herself, and then being replied by the other character that she wasn't talking to, but was obviously he was supposed to have said the first line, but he had changed it to like it was written by the female. Right, even though the entire dialogue conversation wouldn't have made sense if the male character didn't talk first. But yeah, it was something. If you read the book, you know what I'm talking about, right? Right. It was very obviously like, so he made a mistake. The writer made a mistake, and whoever edited the book should have pointed out to the author, hey, who's supposed to say this line? Because it sounds like it's coming from Klug, but then you wrote she said, right? When it's obviously you meant for Klug to say that. So it's like, what the fuck, man? But yeah, there's problems like that. So I was leaning to give this a 6 out of 10, but because of problems like that, mistakes like that, and other problems like I've already said throughout the book, the book. In short, the book has a lot of great action, great world building. I forgot to mention that, but there's great world building, cool characters, cool villains, right? But the problems is like the names are hard to pronounce. There's stupid, childish lines here and there, and then like, yeah, there's some like other yeah, there's stuff like childish lines and stuff, and then there's the grammatical errors and like whoever bad editing from the editor. So I'm giving this book a 5.5 out of 10. I would recommend this book for people who like dark fantasy and who like books like the Sword of Truth series by Terry Goodkind. If you're a fan of the Sword of Truth series and you're a fan of dark fantasy and you like Dune, you would probably like this, because a lot of references to Dune, a lot of homages to Wizard's First Rule, to the point where like you can almost say he stole the author stole shit from Wizard's First Rule. But I enjoyed the book nonetheless. So next week we're going to review the sequel to The Eye of the World, The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan.